The movie begins in 1931. The Bondurant brothers, Howard, Forrest, and Jack, thrive by selling homemade alcohol in Prohibition-era Franklin County, Virginia. Forrest, the eldest, and feeling invincible after surviving a wartime tragedy, leads their bootlegging operation. Despite alcohol being illegal since 1920, even the local sheriffs discreetly purchase from them, using their gas station and restaurant as a front. Aided by Cricket Pate, Jack's adept friend, they craft alcohol from anything available. One night, Jack's impatience leads to a dangerous encounter while watching his brothers make a delivery. They rescue him just in time. At a party, Jack meets Bertha Minix, the preacher's daughter, sparking interest but earning a warning from Howard about her father's strictness. Forrest discovers Maggie Buford waiting for him at the restaurant, seeking a job as a waitress due to tough times after leaving the city where she was a struggling dancer. Despite his reservations, Forrest hires her out of necessity. Meanwhile, Jack witnesses bootlegger Floyd Banner kill 2 federal agents in broad daylight, prompting him to share the tale with Cricket, who suggests using a bullet shell as a lucky charm and reveals a new hiding method for their alcohol through the plumbing. Shortly after, U.S. Marshal Charlie Rakes arrives with Sheriff Hodges and Attorney Mason Wardell, proposing a payoff to allow their bootlegging to continue, but Forrest vehemently declines. Forrest confronts the lawyer, warning him to keep Rakes away to avoid trouble. That night, he gathers his bootlegging peers but refuses their pleas to cooperate with the lawyer and pay off Rakes. Forrest insists the Bondurants won't yield and urges unity against Rakes and the lawyer, though they all decline. The next day, Sheriff inadvertently intensifies tensions by mentioning Forrest's belief in his invincibility to Rakes, igniting a fierce conflict between the two strong-willed men. Meanwhile, Jack is unhappy because Forrest won't let him join their business, saying he is too inexperienced. Forrest even forbids him from drinking alcohol, but Jack decides to defy Forrest and gets drunk on a bottle. He goes to a church service to see Bertha, but embarrasses himself and leaves. Despite this, he catches her attention. Later, Jack goes to Cricket's house and unexpectedly finds Rakes there looking for the Bondurants. Unfortunately, Jack gets beaten up by Rakes to send a message to his brothers. Forrest reminds Jack that if he wants to be part of their business, he will have to handle situations like this in the future. Forrest is dismayed that Jack got hurt, especially by Rakes. The next day, Rakes' men confront Forrest, knowing about his illegal activities, attempting to negotiate. Howard retaliates violently, defending Jack, but Forrest intervenes to defuse the situation and sends a stern message to Rakes through them. Later that night, Maggie finds Rakes in their apartment building, pressing her about her past as a dancer, but she firmly refuses to divulge anything. The next day, Howard is busy loading the truck for their daily sales when Forrest tells him to be back by 11 p.m. to help handle some visitors buying alcohol from them. Howard reassures Forrest that he has always been reliable and has no intention of letting him down. Meanwhile, Jack visits Bertha dressed in his dad's suit. As they talk, Bertha warns Jack to be cautious if her dad catches him trying to talk to her. Jack stays and chats with her for a while, but has to sneak away before her dad actually catches him. Later that night at the station, Forrest notices Howard is out of bullets and asks Cricket to close up with Maggie. As Forrest steps out, he finds Maggie being bothered by 2 drunk customers. He fights them off and kicks them out of the restaurant. After Maggie closes up and leaves, Forrest is ambushed by the same men. They cut his throat and leave him on the floor. Fortunately, Maggie returns to check on Forrest and finds him injured. However, she gets attacked and assaulted by the men too. She keeps this information from Forrest because she knows he would want revenge if he knew. While Forrest is recovering in the hospital, Maggie comes to visit with her bags. She's upset about what happened to Forrest, but relieved he's okay. She tells him she's leaving. Forrest, who has grown fond of her, realizes this is not the peace she was looking for. He suggests she stay at the station with them for safety until they deal with those 2 men. Meanwhile, Jack tries to convince Howard they can sell off their remaining liquor and retire. Howard is still upset with himself for letting Forrest down and does not listen to Jack. Jack understands that provoking Rakes further won't help, especially after what happened to Forrest. He goes to the hospital and takes Forrest's keys to the liquor storage room. He needs help, so he asks Cricket to join him. They plan to sell the remaining liquor at the county line. Halfway there, their car runs out of gas in the middle of the road, but Cricket comes up with a quick idea to use liquor instead of gas, which gets them moving again. During the delivery, they are attacked by Floyd Banner's gang, who shoot at them and try to bury them. With no other choice, Jack reveals he is a Bondurant. Banner respects the Bondurants for standing up to Rakes, so he decides to spare them. Jack earns a lot of money from selling the liquor. When he meets Forrest and Banner, they give him a paper with the address of the men who attacked Forrest. They explain that these men used to be bootleggers, but now work for Rakes as deputy marshals to avoid punishment. Jack proudly returns home the next morning to Forrest, who is back from the hospital and looks ready to scold him. Jack explains what happened, shows Forrest the money, and gives him the note from Banner. He takes his share of the earnings and convinces Forrest they can get revenge on those men that night with the money he earned. Jack buys a Kodak box camera and visits Bertha. He takes a picture of her and she takes one of him. He also buys himself a new car and returns home excited to show it off. We see that he finds out Forrest and Howard have gone to seek revenge without him again. Maggie tries to stop him, but Jack is already gone to find his brothers. When he gets there, he sees his brothers have already punished and dealt with the men. Since Jack wants to be involved so badly, Howard hands him one of the men's testicles as a message to Rakes. The next morning, Rakes hears a knock on his door and goes out with his gun to see what is happening. He does not see anyone at the door but finds a nicely wrapped gift on the floor. Opening it, he drops the jar inside when he sees what is in it. For the next few weeks, Banner becomes a regular customer of the brothers. Jack and Cricket officially join the team and start making deliveries despite the police chasing them and the risks involved. Meanwhile, Rakes does not give up. He finds and destroys all their steals until the brothers decide to use their profits to set up a bigger steal in the woods. During this time, Cricket also improves their engines and upgrades their vehicles to make them faster and tougher than the police cars. And Jack continues pursuing Bertha, even though her father chases him away every time. Meanwhile, all the other bootleggers, except the Bondurant cousin Spoons Rivar, gave in and made deals with Wardle. Spoons was then tortured and severely punished by Rakes one night. Maggie, who has grown fond of Forrest, becomes frustrated with him watching over her at night. Unable to bear it any longer, she enters his room and they make love, confirming their feelings for each other. The next morning, the Bondurants wake up to find Spoons half dead and covered in feathers, sent by Rakes. Meanwhile, Jack visits Bertha in his new car and persuades her to come with him. He compliments her beautiful dress, which she says she cannot wear to events because of her father's position. Jack offers to take her to events where she can show off her gown. He then asks her to wear it and takes her through the woods to show her their secret operation. Unbeknownst to him, Rakes is watching them and follows with his backup to the hideout. Cricket is uneasy about Jack bringing Bertha, but Jack thinks he's doing the right thing. While they chat, Rakes and his officers suddenly attack. Jack tells Cricket to take Bertha and go to the station, then runs the other way to distract them. Fortunately, Howard is nearby and helps Jack fight some of the men, giving them a chance to get away. While Jack and Bertha manage to escape, Cricket and Bertha are caught by the police. Bertha is taken home, while Rakes asks Cricket to go with him. Rakes takes him to a quiet place and breaks Cricket's neck. Soon after, the whole place is blown up by the police. Back at the station, Jack tries to apologize for his actions, but Forrest is fed up. While Jack is scolded, Howard arrives with the news that Cricket has passed away, leaving Jack devastated. A funeral is held for Cricket later, during which Jimmy Turner, one of the bootleggers, tries to console Forrest. However, Forrest criticizes him for making deals with Wardell and betraying them in the first place. Jack is devastated and wishes he could do something to get back at the people who hurt Cricket. He spends the rest of the night sitting in Cricket's car. The next morning, he stares angrily at Cricket's photo. When he hears a horn downstairs, Jack hurries down to see who it is. Forrest watches from the window. It is the sheriff who asks to speak with Forrest. Jack says he will pass on the message. The sheriff then tells Jack that he and his officers had nothing to do with what happened to Cricket. They all know Cricket is a good person. The sheriff also tells Jack that Rakes has blocked the bridge to catch the brothers. Meanwhile, Wardell is organizing a prohibition agent to round up all the bootleggers in the county. Without hesitation, Jack grabs his gun and takes Cricket's car to confront Rakes. Howard notices and hurries to find Forrest so they can go after Jack. "I cannot let you go out there and possibly end up dead," Maggie says, disapproving of Jack's impulsive decision. She explains to Forrest that she was the one who drove him to the hospital after the attack, and Forrest realizes she was also assaulted by those men. Maggie denies it, but Forrest already knows the truth. Jack is shot by Rakes at the bridge, prompting Howard and Forrest to join a gunfight with the police. During the chaos, Forrest and their driver are hit, and the driver dies. The sheriff tries to stop the violence, but Rakes persists in targeting Forrest. When Forrest falls, the bootleggers retaliate, allowing Rakes to escape onto the bridge. Enraged, Jack pursues Rakes with Forrest's gun, followed by Howard. Jack shoots Rakes, but Howard finishes him off with a fatal stab. In December, Prohibition ends, leading to Wardell's arrest for corruption. The Bondurant brothers settle down. Jack marries Bertha, Forrest marries Maggie, and Howard marries a woman from Martinsville. They transition to legal work. A decade later, at a reunion, Forrest, drunk, falls into a frozen lake, survives, but succumbs to pneumonia, ending the myth of his invincibility, and with this, the movie ends here.